I just posted a video that tells my story. It's been coming for a long time, that video, and me finally like coming out and saying what happened to me, because I've always really held it very close to me. I was very secretive about what I went through, and I guess if I ever spoke about it, which was rare, I always felt like bad stuff was gonna happen to me, and it was just like a childish way of thinking about it, but I couldn't help it. Like that I'm, you know, a stay-at-home mom, 3 kids, making dinner. I made lasagna. My husband is not home, and we're just doing our normal routine stuff. And all of a sudden, I see these lights coming down this long driveway. So I go and I look out my door, and when I go and I look out my door, I see cop cars all to the side. Like, I didn't see anything. There was probably more than what I even saw, because there was a fence and stuff and they could go behind that. So they come up and they show me the warrant, and I had a neighbor who's my best friend. I sent the kids over to their house, and so it's just me in the home, and I'm just sitting on the sofa. Going to college, and I'm just sitting on there, and I'm trying to study, but it's kind of hard, but I'm trying to stay busy. Cops are all outside. There's no officers in the house. I don't see anybody up front. I'm being left in the house while I now know that you're here, and you still leave me in the house unattended, because I am really of no concern to you. So they make their way in there into the house, and they look in the house, and there's no drugs in the house. There were no drugs on the property. All of a sudden, like, they had gone back into my bedroom, which was over in like that part of the house, and this officer comes out, and he's like pissed off, and he's like, "This is our big drug bust." He's carrying in his hand a Ziploc bag, the corner of a Ziploc bag that's like twisted with like a little, probably dime size bag of seeds, marijuana seeds. I knew exactly what those were, and yes, I did know they were there. Richie, which was the brother of my ex-husband now, but was his brother. He had passed away, he'd gotten in a car accident, and in his stuff was this little bag of seeds. And Jamie kept those seeds, and he put them in this little box. There was this like little brown box that he had of like some things from his dad, because his dad had passed away, and then some things of Richie's, and it was like this little bag. So this little dime-sized bag of seeds are 6 years old, and the bag's kind of yellowed, and he comes out and he's like, "This is it, this is what we got." You know, I didn't even think about those being there, because to me it's just like, what is, like, it's absolutely nothing. So they're all pissed off. Everybody there is pissed off because they didn't get this big drug bust that they were promised by this investigator. The investigator then comes in, and again, there is nobody in the house. Nobody's there. All the officers are outside. There's no children, there is only me in this house, sitting on my sofa. And then he takes me to my bedroom, and he tells me to sit on my bed. I just remember him like yelling at me and pacing around and standing in front of me, like very close, like his crotch is like in front of me. I just sat there very calm. And the entire time I had my dad going through my head, because my dad had been a police officer, and my dad taught me that from a very small child, he said, Police officers are only people. Do not be afraid. Stay calm. So that's what I did, which I think only pissed off the investigator. So he leaves again, and then he comes back to me, and he says, because I have my books. Oh yeah, so I'm on the sofa because I have my books, and he says, you go to college? And I was like, yes, I'm going to college for psychology because that's what my major was. He says, I want you to tell me who's dealing drugs there. And I just look at him and I'm like, I can't do that. I don't do drugs. I can't do that. I don't know of anybody. And he says, well, you can find out. And I'm like, I can't do that. I said, I'm a mother. I can't just go do something like that. I don't use drugs. I don't buy drugs. So it's not possible for me to just go to a college and start doing it. You'll get me killed. And I remember him standing really tall, because he was a tall man, standing really tall and looking down at me and going, you can do it. You can do it. As though he was like a smoldery kind of like, you can do it kind of thing. As if that's going to change my mind. He says, you have until noon tomorrow to contact me and tell me whether or not you're going to do it. He said, and if you don't do it, I'm going to send a car for you. So they wrap up everything, they leave. So I'm left there, okay? I'm left there. There's no drugs found, and I'm left there. The next morning, the clock is ticking, right? I have until noon to tell him that I'm going to go and be a narc for him at the college in our town. And I know good and well that if I do that, I will never not be able to do it. I will be under his thumb and he will control and rule my life, and I am not one for that. So I'm sitting there trying to figure things out. I had already taken kids to school. I'm about to leave. It's getting closer to 12 o'clock, so I'm wanting to leave. I'm not wanting to be at my house because I know already I'm not going to do this. So I'm expecting at any moment there's going to be a car for me. I get stuck in the mud. My driveway was full of ruts and mud, and I guess it had rained really hard. I get stuck in the mud, and Jesse comes. Y'all know, if you know me, Jesse, I did a tribute to him. Matt and I were driving yesterday, and we passed a graveyard, and we saw this really cool chrome headstone, and Matt's like, oh my gosh, that's Jesse's. So Jesse was Jesse Larson from Derby, Mississippi, and he was an outstanding, wonderful man, and he so deserved that chrome headstone. And Jesse holds my hand for a moment. He tells me I'll be okay. I never got to say thank you to Jesse. And he finds me stuck in the mud, and we work together to pull me out. And he takes me to the car wash to wash my vehicle off. And while we're at the car wash and he's cleaning the vehicle, I call a local attorney and I tell the attorney what's going on. And he said, let me call you back. The attorney calls me back and he says, ma'am, I just spoke to the investigator. He says he found a pound of marijuana on you, and you need to turn yourself in because you're being arrested. There's nothing I can do for you. I was speechless. I muster up the courage to say, but that's not true. There was no marijuana. There was no drugs there. I wasn't arrested. There wasn't anything to arrest me for. And he says, well, that's what this investigator says. So there's nothing I can do for you. Have a nice day. And he hangs up. Jesse's finished washing off my vehicle, and he comes and he gets in the passenger side, and we sit there, and I just have tears. I told him what the attorney said and what was going on, and Jesse's sitting there and he's looking at me and his head's shaking. He's doing this. He's saying, that's not right. He said, it's just not right. It's just not right. And I'm devastated because what am I gonna do? I go to my mom's house and I make all the arrangements to make sure that the kids are taken care of, and I go and I turn myself in. And thank God I had worked at the local drugstore and knew the ward. I'm being booked, and He comes in and he looks at me and he says, "What are you doing here?" And I said his name, and I said, "I'm being charged with this and it's not true. I didn't have this. I didn't do this." And he looked at me. I was so desperate. I was so desperate for help, and I was so scared. He then looked at the guy, one of the guys that books people, and he's like, "Call the judge and get her out of here." He has me go sit down in a chair, and he's like, "Get her something to drink." And so the guy went and got me some orange juice. Come to find out, this investigator had been under investigation for 3 years before he had come to my door. At some point, I'm brought in, I'm talking to the agents. And there was a period of time that they needed to get something done. And during that time, I was put into protective custody. And I was put under the protection of a judge. Nobody was to know who I was or anything about me. I was no longer a person. I disappeared. I was put into a safe place to live in a town that's north of us. And me and the kids, and I went ahead and asked for my kids, because at this point the kids could be brought to me, so they were brought to me. And I stayed there for a while, actually the point where I move away and nobody sees me for 15 years until I come back, which was like 2 years ago. I tell this story now because I've always hidden it. I was so ashamed of what I had gone through. I hadn't done anything wrong. It wasn't me. I married the wrong person. He did stuff wrong. I was investigated, found to be an innocent bystander. I don't know what happens to the investigator that came to my door. I have no idea. I was so disappointed in myself to have been put in that situation. And I felt like I had dishonored my father. And so I had this amount of money that I wanted to make in order to not, in order for me to forgive myself for him, for my father. I remember sitting back and I was like, holy shit, I said I would forgive myself at this point and I've gone beyond that point. And I had to, in that moment, say to myself, you have to forgive yourself now. You've done it. You hit your mark. You hit your goal. It's time to let it go. So in that moment, I did. I never thought I would come back to this town, and I missed it so much. And there's things about it that I just love. I truly do. And of course, the person I loved was here. But I was always drawn out. I would always think about, what it would be like to be back here, and that I could just slip on in and see it without anybody knowing that I had come here. And that was my plan for a long time. A lot of people in this town knew what was going on with this guy. It wasn't a secret. I think the biggest secret is the parts that I know from the other side of it. I knew that. I think at the very end, probably it came out and it was like, oh shit, we better clean up our act because things are about to come down. I would assume, but at this point I'm gone. And they've got me into safety. Me and the kids. Sometimes I have resentment, I would say, for certain people, because they were there and they could have done the right thing. They could have stepped in and they didn't. They chose not to. And to see them walk around this town sometimes is kind of hard. I'm happy to be back, and my children love it here, and I'm happy for them. They have a wonderful life, and this place has become a better place. And I don't know if it's become, I don't know about the law enforcement. I would assume that it is better. Anyway, that's the story behind the story.